My parents demanded I pay my sister's mortgage, saying she'd pay me back in a month. When I refused, they sued me for $380,000. I'm Samantha Brooks. I turned 33 last winter, and for most of my adult life, I've known exactly where I stood in my family, firmly in the shadow of my older sister. Ashley, my senior by 4 years, was the perfect daughter. She got the proud smiles, the weekend visits, the phone calls that lasted more than 5 minutes. She did everything right, at least according to our parents, Albert and Susan Brooks. Ashley married her college sweetheart at 25, had twin girls by 28, hosted elaborate Thanksgiving dinners, and sent handwritten thank you notes within 48 hours. She lived in a charming colonial in Westchester County with a white picket fence and a golden retriever named Buddy. And me? I stayed single, focused on my accounting career, rented a tidy 1-bedroom apartment in downtown Hartford where nobody questioned my life choices. I had a healthy 401k, a growing investment portfolio, and no intention of asking anyone for financial help. Apparently, those things don't count when you're not planning a wedding. My parents never said it outright, but their questions always carried weight. Don't you want children while you're still young? Mom would ask during our monthly dinners. Ashley's girls are getting so big. It's such a shame they don't have any cousins to play with. Dad would chime in with, "You're still in that apartment, huh? When are you going to settle down somewhere permanent?" I learned to smile and redirect the conversation. I used to think if I worked hard enough, saved smart enough, maybe they'd finally see me the way they saw Ashley. But the truth settled in slowly, like sediment in still water. I wasn't the daughter they bragged about at their book club meetings. I was the one they assumed would always be fine, no matter what happened. Still, I never complained. I visited for holidays, fixed their computer problems, brought expensive wine to family gatherings, even when they forgot my birthday. For the most part, I kept my emotional distance. It felt safer that way, like wearing armor to a battle I never signed up for. I didn't realize back then that distance wouldn't protect me. That one day, they tried to drag me so deep into their expectations that I'd barely recognize the person staring back at me in the mirror. Ashley's picture-perfect life began to crumble the way fine china does, quietly at first, then all at once. Her husband Trevor had been having an affair with his dental hygienist for 2 years. Ashley discovered the truth when she found hotel receipts in his jacket pocket while doing laundry. When she confronted him, he didn't even try to deny it. The divorce was swift and brutal. Trevor moved out within a week, taking half their savings and leaving Ashley with twin 8-year-olds, a mortgage she couldn't afford alone, and the kind of heartbreak that makes you question everything you thought you knew about your life. Would Ashley's perfect world continue to fall apart? And what would my parents expect from me? Our parents rallied around Ashley immediately. They were supportive with words and sympathy, but their retirement savings were locked up in CDs and treasury bonds. Ashley had to sell the colonial and move into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Stamford where the girls shared a room and the heating barely worked. I didn't think twice about stepping in. I paid Ashley's divorce attorney's retainer, $8,000. I covered 4 months of her rent when her part-time job at the local library wasn't enough to make ends meet. I even watched the twins some weekends so Ashley could job hunt or just breathe for a few hours. I never mentioned the money. Never expected acknowledgement or repayment. I loved those girls, Mila and Sophia, and Ashley looked so broken, like someone who'd never had to ask for help and hated every minute of needing it. I thought maybe this crisis would finally show our parents who I really was. Maybe they'd understand that I wasn't the daughter with something to prove, I was the daughter who showed up when it mattered. They didn't see it that way. Instead, every conversation with Mom began with updates about Ashley's struggles, followed immediately by questions about my dating life. "Are you seeing anyone special yet?" she'd ask, as if my single status was somehow connected to my sister's divorce. "You know, Ashley could really use family support right now. Have you thought about how much easier things would be if you had a husband to help out?" I kept quiet, helped where I could, told myself that family meant showing up even when you felt invisible. But here's the thing about always being the responsible one: eventually, people stop seeing your help as generosity and start treating it like an obligation. The phone call came on a Tuesday evening in March. I was heating up leftover Chinese takeout when Mom called, her voice practically bubbling with excitement. "Samantha, honey, we have the most wonderful news. Can you come over tonight? Your father's already home from the office, and Ashley will be here too." Her tone had a brightness I hadn't heard in months, maybe years. For a moment, I wondered if Trevor had finally agreed to pay the child support he owed, or if Ashley had landed that full-time position at the county courthouse. Is it about the girls or the support payments? I asked, balancing the phone between my shoulder and ear. Oh no, even better than that, she said, laughing. Just come over. This is too exciting to explain over the phone. I drove across town after finishing my dinner, curious but cautious. Something felt rehearsed about Mom's enthusiasm, too polished, like she'd practiced the conversation. But I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe for once, it really was good news. What were they so excited to tell me? And why did I have a sinking feeling in my stomach? When I walked into my parents' living room, the scene was set like a stage production. Dad sat in his favorite leather recliner, Mom perched on the edge of their burgundy sofa, and Ashley sat beside her, fidgeting with her wedding ring, the one she still wore even though the divorce had been finalized months ago. On the coffee table sat a thick manila folder, the kind banks use for important documents. There's our successful daughter, Dad said, standing to give me a hug before gesturing toward the folder. Take a look at this. Inside was a stack of documents heavy with legal language and real estate logos. At the top, a mortgage agreement for a property in Fairfield County. What is this? I asked, though something cold was already forming in my stomach. It's for Ashley's new house, Mom beamed, clasping her hands together. We used most of our savings and dipped into the retirement fund for the down payment. Isn't it wonderful? I blinked hard, trying to process. You bought a house? A beautiful 4-bedroom colonial, she continued. 2-car garage, finished basement, excellent school district for the girls. They need stability, Samanthan. That cramped apartment just wasn't suitable for growing children. I looked at Ashley, who managed a weak smile but avoided my eyes. That's great, I said honestly. Mila and Sophia will love having their own rooms again. I started to hand the folder back to Mom, but she pushed it toward me again. No, those documents are for you, she said, her smile never wavering. What do you mean for me? Dad cleared his throat, the way he always did before delivering bad news. We've discussed this as a family, and we've decided you'll take over the mortgage payments. You've been saving money for years, living in that small apartment. You can easily afford the monthly payments, and Ashley simply can't. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. I felt every eye in the room watching me, waiting for my response. You're asking me to pay for Ashley's house? I asked slowly. Ashley finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. After Trevor left, I have nothing, Sam. I can't give the girls what they need without help. I looked at the mortgage agreement again. The monthly payment was staggering, more than my rent and car payment combined. I already paid for your divorce, I said quietly. And 4 months of rent. I've been saving for 10 years to buy my own place. Sweetheart, Mom said, reaching for my hand with that patronizing tone she'd perfected over the years. We raised you. We've given you everything. Isn't it time to give back to the family that made you who you are? The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood up, heart pounding, the folder still in my hands. You bought a house knowing she couldn't afford it because you assumed I'd just cover it? Dad didn't even try to deny it. You don't have a husband or children to support, he said matter-of-factly. Your expenses are minimal compared to Ashley's responsibilities. What would I do? Would I cave to their expectations, or finally stand up for myself? I'm not doing this, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. This isn't helping family. This is financial manipulation. I left the folder on the coffee table and walked toward the door, my hands shaking with anger and disbelief. Samanthan, wait, Mom called after me. Where are you going? We haven't finished discussing this. There's nothing to discuss, I said without turning around. You made a decision without consulting me, and now you're trying to guilt me into paying for it. That's not how family works. I walked out before I could say something I'd regret, though part of me wondered if I'd already said too much. The drive home was a blur of traffic lights and racing thoughts. I kept telling myself they'd cool down, that once they thought about it rationally, they'd realize how absurd the whole situation was. Asking your unmarried daughter to pay for her sister's mortgage wasn't something most reasonable people would defend. I was wrong. The first call came that Saturday morning from my cousin Brittany, someone I hadn't spoken to since our grandmother's funeral 3 years ago. "I heard what happened," she said without preamble. "I can't believe you're being so selfish about this." "Excuse me?" I asked, nearly dropping my coffee mug. "Ashley is a single mother, Samanthan. Those girls are your nieces. You're sitting on all that money in savings while they're struggling to get by." I gripped the counter, feeling the familiar burn of injustice. "Brittany, you don't understand the full situation." "I understand enough," she shot back. "Family helps family. That's what we do. Ashley would do the same for you if the situation were reversed." I almost laughed, a bitter involuntary sound. "No, she wouldn't," I said quietly. "She's never helped anyone but herself." "You're unbelievable," Brittany snapped before hanging up. The texts started after that. Then voicemails from relatives I barely knew, Uncle Paul, Aunt Linda, cousins I hadn't seen in years. All of them piling on with the same message: "You're selfish. They raised you. She has children. You don't." What struck me most wasn't the anger in their voices. It was the certainty. As if they knew beyond any doubt that I was wrong, that because I hadn't built a traditional family of my own, I was somehow obligated to fund someone else's. The worst call came from my great-aunt Dorothy, Mom's older sister. She called during my lunch break at work. "I just want to talk some sense into you," she said in that sugary tone that made my skin crawl. "You're not getting any younger, dear. Who knows if you'll ever have children of your own. At least this way, you'd be contributing to your family's legacy." "So because I'm single," I said, "I owe Ashley a house?" "Don't be so dramatic. They just need help, and you're in a position to provide it." That evening, I blocked every number that had contacted me. If they couldn't respect my boundaries, they didn't deserve access to my peace of mind. But I knew something I hadn't wanted to admit: this wasn't really about the house. It never had been. 2 months passed in blessed silence. I threw myself into work, started taking yoga classes, let the quiet become something close to peace. I began looking at condos in my price range, imagining a life where my financial decisions were my own. Then the envelope arrived. It came on a Thursday morning, thick and official looking. I assumed it was insurance paperwork or maybe documents related to my 401k rollover. But when I opened it at my kitchen table, my blood ran cold. They were suing me. Albert and Susan Brooks versus Samanthan Brooks. My own parents had filed a civil lawsuit demanding $380,000 in reimbursement for expenses related to my upbringing. I read it 3 times, each line more devastating than the last. They'd itemized everything: food, clothing, educational expenses, medical bills, even family vacations from when I was 7 years old. There was a section titled Emotional Support and Guidance During Formative Years that made my hands shake with rage. At the bottom, in clinical legal language, funds to be allocated toward completion of mortgage obligations for Ashley Brooks and her minor children. They weren't even pretending this was about principles. They wanted my money for Ashley's house, and they were willing to destroy our family to get it. I called the best attorney I could find. Amanda Rodriguez met with me the next day in her downtown office. She was sharp, professional, and didn't flinch once while I explained the situation. "They have absolutely no legal right to your money," she said flatly, scanning through the lawsuit documents. "Parents are obligated to provide for their minor children. There's no legal precedent for demanding repayment once that child becomes an adult." "Then why are they doing this?" I asked. Amanda shrugged. "Either it's a pressure tactic, they think you'll cave to avoid court, or they genuinely believe they're entitled to your savings. Either way, it's legally groundless." Over the next 3 weeks, I gathered evidence. Bank statements showing the $12,000 I'd given Ashley for her divorce and rent. Records of the countless times I'd helped my parents financially over the years, $800 here, $1,200 there, whenever Dad's pension came up short or Mom needed help with medical bills. I pulled receipts I'd forgotten I kept, searched through old email accounts for money transfer confirmations. Every document was a memory I hadn't asked to revisit, a reminder of all the ways I'd tried to be the good daughter. The night before the court date, I sat in my apartment surrounded by boxes of evidence, wondering how my life had come to this. Tomorrow, I'd be facing my parents in court, defending my right to keep the money I'd earned. I called my grandmother, the only family member who'd stayed out of the drama. Grandma Martha, I said when she answered. I'm scared about tomorrow. Oh honey, she said, her voice warm and steady. You're doing the right thing. What they're asking isn't love, it's manipulation. Don't you dare let them make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. But what if I lose? I asked. What if the judge thinks I should have helped? Then that judge doesn't understand what family really means, she said firmly. Real family doesn't come with a price tag, Samanthan. Remember that tomorrow. Would I be strong enough to face them in court? And what would this lawsuit do to our family forever? The courthouse was everything I'd expected, cold, imposing, with that particular smell of old wood and nervous sweat. I wore my best navy suit and carried a briefcase full of evidence, feeling like I was preparing for battle. Grandma Martha had driven down from Boston to support me, bless her heart. She sat in the front row on my side, her silver hair perfectly styled, wearing the pearl necklace Grandpa had given her for their 50th anniversary. Across the aisle, my parents sat with Ashley between them. Behind them, a small army of relatives who'd apparently taken time off work to watch the drama unfold. People who hadn't bothered to call me on my birthday were now here to support the family against me. The judge was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Judge Susan Williams looked like someone who'd seen every type of family dysfunction imaginable and had run out of patience for it. My father stood first when called to present their case. Your Honor, he began, his voice carrying that same authority he'd used when I was a child. We're not unreasonable people. We invested 33 years of our lives, our money, and our emotional energy into raising Samanthan. We're simply asking for a portion of that investment back to help our other daughter and her children during a difficult time. Judge Williams didn't look impressed. Specifically, she said, flipping through the paperwork, what did you spend on the defendant's education after she turned 18? My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. Dad cleared his throat. Well, at that time, Ashley had just gotten married, and we were helping her and her husband establish their household. So you did not contribute to Ms. Brooks' college expenses? The judge clarified. No, Mom said quickly, but my mother, Samanthan's grandmother, helped with tuition. Since she's my mother, I'd argue that counts as family support. From behind me, I heard Grandma Martha make a soft sound of disgust. Amanda stood up, calm and professional. Your Honor, we have extensive documentation showing that Ms. Brooks has been completely financially independent since age 18. Furthermore, she has provided repeated financial assistance to both her parents and her sister. She handed over our evidence file, bank statements, receipts, email records. This includes $8,000 for her sister's divorce attorney, $4,800 in rent payments, and numerous direct deposits to her parents during times they reported financial hardship. The judge reviewed the documents quietly, then looked up. So the defendant wasn't receiving financial support from her parents, she was providing it? That's correct, Your Honor, Amanda replied. My mother shifted uncomfortably. That money isn't relevant to our case, she argued. We're talking about the fundamental cost of raising a child, food, shelter, emotional guidance. Why exactly, Judge Williams asked, do you need $380,000 now? The courtroom fell silent. Mom looked at Ashley, then back at the judge. To help Ashley complete the mortgage payments on her new home, she said quietly. The judge's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Ms. Ashley Brooks, she said, do you believe your sister should be financially responsible for your mortgage? Ashley finally looked up, her voice barely audible. She doesn't have a husband or children. I have twin daughters who need stability. And that creates a financial obligation for your sister, the judge asked. We're family, Ashley said weakly. Judge Williams raised an eyebrow. I'm not married either, and I don't have children. Should I be paying my clerk's rent or my bailiff's children's expenses? Ashley said nothing. For the next hour, the judge asked pointed questions. Not cruel, but unflinching. Why did they assume I would pay? Why purchase a house they knew Ashley couldn't afford? Why tie family love to financial obligation? When we stepped outside for a recess, Grandma Martha hugged me tight. You're handling this beautifully, she whispered. Stay strong. I wasn't sure if I was winning, but for the first time in years, I felt like someone was actually listening to my side of the story. The verdict came the following week. The courtroom felt smaller this time, maybe because I was finally breathing freely in it. Judge Williams didn't waste time with pleasantries. After reviewing all evidence presented, I find the plaintiff's claim to be completely without merit. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, the financial responsibility of raising a child does not entitle you to reimbursement once that child becomes an adult. She paused, looking directly at my parents. Furthermore, the evidence clearly shows that Ms. Samantha Brooks has been financially independent since age 18 and has, in fact, provided substantial support to both you and her sister over the years. Then, quietly but firmly, I find your behavior toward your daughter to be not only legally groundless but morally reprehensible. Case dismissed. Just like that, it was over. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just stood there while Amanda smiled professionally and Grandma Martha squeezed my arm. "You're free," she whispered. But I learned it wasn't really over. A week later, Grandma Martha called with news that shouldn't have surprised me but still stung. "Your mother came to see me yesterday," she said, sounding tired. "She asked me to release her inheritance early." "For what?" I asked, though I already knew. "To pay off Ashley's mortgage. I told her that my will is my business, and I haven't decided who gets what yet." "What did she say?" "She cried. Begged me not to disinherit her. I felt sad for her, but I also felt angry. She was crying over money, not over losing you." 6 months passed quietly. I closed on a charming bungalow in West Hartford, nothing huge but mine. I painted the kitchen a cheerful yellow, planted a vegetable garden, and adopted a tabby cat I named Ginger who sleeps on my laptop every night while I work. Ashley kept the house but had to rent out the basement apartment to make the mortgage payments. She and the girls moved back in with our parents. Mom babysits while Ashley works full-time at the courthouse now. Somehow, they made it work without my money. I didn't call. I didn't write. I didn't send birthday cards. Then, almost a year after the trial, an email appeared in my inbox. No subject line, just, "We heard you bought a house. Since you have extra space now, we think it would be best if Ashley and the girls moved in with you. It would be much more convenient for everyone. Let us know when they can move in. Love, Mom and Dad." I read it twice, feeling nothing but a strange sort of peace. I typed back, "I will not be housing Ashley or the girls. If you contact me again with demands like this, I will report the harassment to the police. Do not email me again." I hit send, blocked their email address, and made myself a cup of tea. These days, my house smells like fresh herbs and coffee. Ginger sits on the windowsill most mornings, watching birds she'll never catch. I painted that kitchen yellow like I always said I would, and the tomatoes in my back garden are finally ripening. It's quiet here. No raised voices, no guilt trips, no questions I don't want to answer. Grandma Martha visits often, bringing homemade cookies and old photo albums. She doesn't talk about my parents unless I ask, and I rarely do. I'm dating someone now, Andrew, a teacher with a kind smile and a laugh that makes me feel like there's finally space in my life for joy. He doesn't ask about my family. Not yet. And I don't offer explanations. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. Some ties don't need mending. I'm not naive. I know my parents still tell people I abandoned Ashley, that I chose money over family. But I sleep better now than I have in years. I wake up in a home that's truly mine, with a life I built on my own terms. Sometimes I wonder about Mila and Sophia, whether they'll reach out when they're older. Sometimes I wonder what they've been told about their aunt who disappeared from their lives. But I don't wait for those calls. I'm too busy building something better, a life where love doesn't come with fine print, where family doesn't mean sacrificing everything you've worked for. Because peace, I've learned, isn't something you're given. It's something you claim for yourself, one boundary at a time.